Okay, then we move on to, where is it here? Where'd you go? This email is for Mr. Sim. My name is Nick, and I'm one of the hosts for the MGPOW Chats podcast live stream. We did a couple of live streams dedicated to Tangent back in 2018. I really enjoyed reading it, and I had written, where did page 9 go? It was here just a second ago. There it is. An article that went viral last year using excerpts about women and their infatuation with dogs. It would be a great pleasure to talk to you about Tangent and how well it's aged and how you feel about it today. I don't feel about things, I think. The blowback for it, if it's changed you, or have you changed your views? Maybe discuss your social observations in 2022. My channels between YouTube and BitChute get about 2,000 views. We aren't popular or anything, just guys chatting. But we have had some amazing guests on. This is Please Hold for Dave Sim. It's pretty much my only outlet for these kinds of things, for exactly that reason, that it does tend to eat up time, and there's a sense of, well, I hope somebody out there is enjoying this, but it's not really my kind of thing. Just me trying to meet the internet halfway. I do appreciate the fact that he sent the email to you. I'm going to just treat it as a question on Please Hold for Dave Sim, and I would have to reread Tangent in order to say this is what I disagree with now, or these are qualifications that I might or might not have about it. I know that I worked very, very hard on that essay and tried to cover as much as I possibly could cover, which I think I did. I think it was, okay, I'm not, this could be twice as long, trying not to hurt people's feelings, but that's not really my purpose here, to express myself and express my ideas in such a way as to not hurt people's feelings, which is, I think, the problem that I predicted we were going to get into, and the problem that we've gotten into as a society is we can either actually communicate with each other and just find out where we'll just have to agree to disagree points are, or we can have absolutely zero communication and just have people nattering at us about all the time about inclusivity when they have a very short list of things that they include and other things that they not only don't include, but which they are specifically intent on having eradicated, and are really indignant that other people don't want to join with them in eradicating things that they disagree with and making sure that things that they disagree with aren't being communicated. My experience at this point, which is Tangent was, trying to remember what year that was, 2008, 2009?
No, Tangent was like 2002, 2003.
Right, earlier than that. It was before Cerebus was done. So we're talking about 20 years later, and in terms of, I certainly don't have any appreciable contact with human beings, because the thing that I was writing about in Tangent has become so ubiquitous that I think I'm discharging my obligation by subscribing to the National Post and reading that the 6 days a week that it comes in. The Epoch Times, which comes out once a week. I subscribe to that. I also get frequently the Globe and Mail for free, which is an extreme left-wing newspaper. The local Waterloo Region Record, which is an extreme left-wing newspaper. The Toronto Star, which is way, way over extreme left-wing stuff. And I just go, all right, this is the world as it's being presented to me this is what a newspaper is. This is what in 2022 is considered universally agreed upon statements of facts. This is what happened. This is what took place yesterday. And here's us as journalists dispassionately and factually conveying the information to you as a reader. And it's like, no, this is all feminist psychosis stuff, which is fine. It's anybody who wants to choose psychosis. We're certainly at the point of a society of going, just choose your personal form of psychosis and immerse yourself in it if you like that, and make sure that you never read anything written by anybody who doesn't share your psychosis. So it's one of those, even if I thought to myself, well, maybe I should give comic book conventions the benefit of the doubt, or maybe I should give a comic book store signing, the benefit of the doubt. It's, no, all I have to do is read that whole spectrum of newspapers, mostly headlines, articles where I go, okay, well, here's a new point of view on this. Let's see what passes for intelligent discussion in 2022. It's like, no, I wouldn't walk across the street to discuss these subjects with these people. I'm certainly not going to fly across the continent or endure the chaos at Pearson Airport in Toronto so that I could go to another sensibly run airport but still have to come back through Pearson at some point. It seems obvious to me what Justin Trudeau is doing there, which is everybody needs to have a smaller carbon footprint. So if we can just make Pearson Airport as absolutely chaotic and badly run as possible and get Air Canada to cancel 15% of their flights and then 30% of their flights and 40% of their flights because it's just structured in such a way that it's a really nightmarish situation. People will stop flying where they're going. Justin Trudeau will fly where he's going to go because he's the prime minister and he's on a private jet. That doesn't make him happy. He's probably got a much larger carbon footprint than he wants to have. But this is really the way that he thinks, and this is the way mainstream political thought, in quotation marks, is in Canada at this point, which is we have to just eradicate anything that has to do with fossil fuels and, to whatever extent possible, fossil fuels themselves, and it'll be happily ever after for all of us. And it's like, I can't really say that I have a comfort level engaging in any kind of discourse with people like that. It's just, no, look at the situation in Ukraine. Canada could have been in the situation of supplying Europe with the fuel that it needs to keep people from freezing to get this winter. And instead, it was all this green virtue signaling. And it's like, well, okay, I think that's a bad trade-off. I think most sensible people, now that it's happened, goes, that's a bad trade-off. We shouldn't have ended up where we are, but we ended up where we are because nobody can talk to these people because they're not interested in talking. They're just interested in forging ahead on their chosen path, as misapprehended as it is. Joe Biden canceled the KXL pipeline on his first day in office and is now going around, begging OPEC to increase their production because he can't get any more oil from Canada because everything that would have been coming online now if he had not canceled KXL is just not going to happen. So it's I think that's the best I can do, Nick, in terms of saying, okay, 20 years later on Tangent, what do I have to say? And it's like, well, everything that I said was wrong with society and going wrong with society, and all of the places where we were going off the rails, we keep going further and further off of the rails. So 20 years later, I'm just going, well, I'm still waiting for common sense to make a comeback, and I don't really see that kind of common sense making a comeback. We'll see what happens with the midterm elections in the U.S. in November, and that's usually the best that I can do. Read the newspaper, find out who's getting elected, what their policies are, and just go, well, okay, I'm not someone who's helping to drive this bus because nobody wants me to drive this bus. The people who are driving the bus seem to think that they're getting where they're going, and I think they just keep driving further and further into the woods. And there's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing that anybody, I think, with a lick of common sense can do about that, or could do about that in 2022, or will be able to do about that until these people go, okay, we were wrong. We can't just turn the whole world into the Jetsons overnight because we want the world to turn that way. The world is what it is. We have to deal with reality on its own terms.
Okay, quick follow-up. When you read the newspaper, do you read the funnies?
Actually, there aren't funnies in the National Post. Doesn't have them. The Epoch Times doesn't have them. Waterloo Region Record does. Globe and Mail and Toronto Star both do. Why are you asking?
Well, you're working on The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, which is the history of photorealism in comic strips, and they don't really do photorealism comic strips anymore, but at the same time, it's one of those, every time, you mentioned reading the newspaper, and in the back of my head I go, I wonder if Dave because I know you don't read the sports pages anymore. You stopped doing that. And it's like, I wonder if Dave stopped reading the funnies. I mean, it is mostly variations of Charles Schulz. I mean, you're not going to get somebody doing fantastic Terry and the Pirates style adventure strips. But it's one of those, it's something that I've always kind of wondered of, well, does Dave look at, I don't know, pickles? I don't read the newspaper anymore just because it got thinner and thinner to the point where I'm like, I'm not paying for this. Because the local paper...
Yeah, there is that to it. I mean, the Waterloo Region Record, I'm paying like $2.50 for it, and I read it in about an hour at the most, and that's like front to back. But with an extreme left-wing newspaper, that's a small mercy. It's like, I'll pay $2.50 for this if you promise never to make it any bigger than it already is.
I mean, it's the local.
I do read the comic strips. What's the guy, the that does the one about the working world. Gilbert is in the Globe and Mail in the business section, and on the comics page in the Waterloo Region Record, and he's had a really successful track record lately. Strips tend to go like that. They're funny, and then they're sort of not funny, and then they're like, okay, I can understand how somebody would think that was funny, and then they'll just have a glistening little moment. Blondie is in the Waterloo Region Record, and they've had it since 1932 or something like that. They got Blondie really early on, and it's very strange looking at strips like Blondie trying to incorporate laptops and internet and things like that into the punchline. It's okay, that's sort of funny, but it's really not Blondie. I've got a mental image of what a good Blondie strip is, and most of these aren't in those categories. But have the respect that Blondie has been, I think, the top selling strip in terms of number of newspapers for decades. Peanuts and Garfield were really its only competition. I can't say that I've laughed out loud at any of them. There was a Dilbert a week ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that, where I read it and I laughed out loud. I went, well, okay, I didn't completely waste my time. It doesn't. It's not. It's not a real time waster to read a page of comic strips, and it's interesting to see exactly what you're talking about, the peanutsified element of comic strips. What's the simplest drawing that we can do, and still call it a drawing? Wiley's strip, I forget what that one's called, and for better or worse, God bless them, they're still drawing exactly as detailed as they always have, but the strips are shrinking so far that those two strips, I always have to get the magnifying glass out, even just to read them, because the lettering is that small. But and with Lynn Johnson, I think it's the fact that Lynn Johnson hasn't done the strip for years, so it's all reprints from when strips were much bigger. And God bless them for saying, we're gonna, this is art, and we're not going to dumb it down completely just to satisfy this ever shrinking newspaper. So there's the answer to that one.
Well,
and Justin, I think Justin's our last one here.
I believe so.
We got Margaret after that. Hello, I've just begun my first reading of Cerebus, and I'm just getting to High Society, and I'm only a few chapters in. Dave, do you have any tips for a first-time reader? I know people on the group have very in-depth conversations about the saga as a whole. I'm just afraid perhaps I would miss something if I weren't in the quote, right, unquote headspace. Appreciate you taking the time. And I appreciate you taking the time as well, Justin, up there in Miramichi, New Brunswick. You wrote, is he asking if he should smoke weed before reading? And it's like, that's very possible. And that certainly was one of the quote attributes, unquote, of Cerebus back when it started was it went really good for being for people who got stoned and liked reading comics when they were stoned, which is the way that it was created by somebody whose idea of a good working day was to start off with a joint. My advice would be can't say that service fans have a terrible track record for saying how you should read service, but they have had unhappy moments. Like for years, it was you don't have to read the service volume. Just start with High Society. It's like, well, okay, but there's stuff coming up ahead. 10 years up ahead, 8 years up ahead, where actually you're going to have to know what happened in the service volume. But
so,
I'm not going to tell you that because I don't want to spoil people's appreciation while I'm creating this book. But
I tested that theory.
Go ahead.
I tested that theory. I gave Janice and her friend, the neighbor that moved to Florida, Elena, each a copy of High Society so they could be, in a book club pen pal thing. And I asked Janice about a week or two after Elena left. I'm like, so have you guys been reading? She's like, yeah. I'm like, how far are you guys into? Like, page 9. And I'm like, well, what does she think of it? She doesn't know who any of these characters are, and she's really confused as to what's going on. And I'm like, oh, yeah, so like when Elrod shows up, if you don't have issue 4 and issue 7 and issue 12, if you don't have the first 3 appearances of Elrod under your belt, you don't know what the deal is, and you're really confused. They have no idea who Lord Julius is. And it was, I started to write up in my head of, okay, I'm going to write a quick little primer of the first 25 issues so that I can give it to her as, here's what, and I haven't actually gotten around to it because they both kind of gave up on the book because it was confusing to them, but I was starting it off with as a Conan parody because it's service of Know Ye, O Princess, that from the time of the fall of the Black Tower Empire to the rise of the sons of Isu lived an age undreamt of, and basically parodying the Conan preamble. And it's one of those, I got as far as writing that in my head and going, yeah, at this point I should just do that as a blog post and put it up on A Moment of Service. Okay, so you listened to all your friends that said skip volume 1. Here's what you need to know to read volume 2.
Yeah, see, that doesn't work. That's one of those. Service works on a percentage basis. I've got the sales figures here for July 3rd, and the Service volume sold like 23 copies last week, and the rest of them are down around like 7, 5, something like that. And it's like the percentage of people who go, okay, I keep hearing about this service. I'll buy the service volume, and I'll give it a try. And on a percentage basis, maybe 3% of them go, that was really good. I want to keep going. I want to find out what happens to the rest of this. And the rest of them go, I don't get it. I really don't understand why people think this is good. I don't think this is good. I'm glad that other people think it's good, but I'm just not going to read any more of this. So it's one of those. I've never recommended listening to other people who recommend books because I think people have individual tastes. I didn't read Ayn Rand for years and years and years because everybody just said, oh, don't bother, she's just a Nazi. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I certainly don't want to read a novel by a Nazi. And then as soon as I read it, it's like I went, oh, okay, I know why they're calling her a Nazi, and that's just one of those, I really should have read one of these earlier. War and Peace, I sat down with a notepad and went, okay, I understand that this is really intricate, complicated stuff, so I'm going to write down everybody's name as they show up so that I'm able to keep track of this completely complicated book that the average person couldn't possibly get through. And it's like, oh no, this is effortless. This guy knows exactly what he's doing. I don't know where they came up with this, how complicated and difficult to follow this is. And the same thing happened with the Bible. It's like, oh, it's just a bunch of fairy tales, that priests made up so that they could get all the best food. I'm God and I get all the chicks, that kind of thing. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'll save myself the trouble of reading the Bible. And then when I read the Bible, I went, I don't really know what this is, but no, it's definitely not fairy tale. So my recommendation to people is, if you've heard about something and you're interested in reading it and you're one of those people that picks up things just to see if you like it, pick it up, see if you like it. If you don't like it, don't apologize or don't feel bad or don't think, there's some part missing in me. It's just not your kind of thing. You've got to get over in that direction as a society of going, this is not my kind of thing, and don't apologize for it. This is my kind of thing, and don't apologize for it. It's like, you go find the things that you're interested in, and you be as inclusive with the people that you're willing to include in that. And God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful life. But don't tell me what I'm allowed to read, or what I'm allowed to say, or what people I'm allowed to associate with, because you're just making up stuff about these people because you don't agree with them. So anybody that you don't agree with is a Nazi. And it's like, that's way, way too simplistic. That's fine if you want to live that way and you want to think that way and that's how you want to run your life. But don't try doing that to other people who are open to, I'm always interested in how other people have put the world together. I wouldn't be reading the Toronto Star, and I wouldn't be reading the Waterloo Region Record if I didn't have that nature. At least, you're finding out, well, okay, this seems sensible to these people because, this newspaper is still going, and these are the people that they're paying to fill it with their journalism. So, across the board, whether it's Cerebus, whether it's Glamourpuss, whether it's Utenhas, whether it's Strange Death of Alex Raymond, if you're reading books for entertainment and for edification, pick it up, read a few pages of it, and either it's not your kind of thing, or in Janice and her friend's case, it could be it's not your kind of thing right now. There's lots of stuff that I read or tried to read as a child or as a teenager and went, no, this just isn't doing it for me. And then came to as an adult and went, oh, okay, I just